Hi there, my friend. Welcome to the Leadership Table. I'm so excited to spend some time with you today as we're going to jump into this concept called the frustration gaps in our life. I don't know about you, but I know for me, I've had frustrations in my life. And the frustrations in our life are usually because there was an expectation that wasn't met. There was something that we wanted to accomplish that we didn't know accomplish. And I often say this with leaders. I say that a lot of business leaders, they have visions, right? They have visions of where they want to go. And then they have choices that they make that are bad choices that take them further from where they want to go. You see that difference between the vision of where you see yourself and the choices that you make, that's a frustration gap. And the goal of leadership and the goal of leadership coaching is to help people close that gap. And today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about 11 gaps, 11 frustration gaps that you need to be aware of as you continue to develop, as you continue to grow as a leader. That first one is what we spoke about earlier, was the vision gap. You see, the vision gap is this. I don't know about you, but I know certainly for me, when I was younger and my wife and I were just starting our businesses, I could tell you this, that we had a vision of where we wanted to go. Now, as you start moving and as you start growing, that vision becomes clearer. But the thing that I know is we had a vision. But what I didn't realize is the vision without good choices create frustration gaps. And what I found is that the vision gap is that you have a vision of where you can go, but your actions and your daily things that you do are not bringing you closer to that vision. And in many instances, it's actually taking you further from that vision. And that's what you would call a vision gap. It's from the vision that you can see in your mind, but not where you are in reality. Just take that in. The difference between vision and reality is the choices we make that bring us closer to that vision. So the first frustration gap is the vision gap. Let me share with you the second one. The second one is expectation gap. Now, what do I mean by that? Most relationships, most business partnerships, most marriages, there's an expectation gap, and that creates frustration. The expectation is here, and the person is performing here, and because there's a gap, there's this problem, there's a frustration. Expectation gaps create frustration gaps. And as leaders, the better leader that we are, the better we'll be able to manage expectations. And I don't know about you, and as I'm sharing this with you, there's times where I'm dealing with frustration gaps. I'm not perfect. I certainly have these frustration gaps in my own life, but I want to share them with you so that you become aware of it. One of the worst things you could have is a blind spot, because you know what blind spots do? They kill you. When most people get into an accident on an expressway, it's not because they saw the car and they decided to go anyways. Most of the time is because there was a blind spot there. And blind spots is what stops many people from making it home the next day or that day to see their family, because it's something that they didn't see. And some of these frustration gaps are blind spots. And I just want to encourage you, reduce them. You're not going to be perfect in all of them, but reduce them. So the first was the vision gap. The second is the expectation gap. We have expectations of people. I don't know about you, but I expect people to perform. I expect people to reach their potential. And when people are not trying to grow and develop, I have an expectation. My expectation is they have tremendous potential. Sometimes their expectation is that their potential is not as high as I know it is. And I get a frustration gap there because I see more than they are, than where they are. Let me give you the third one. The third is the knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is this, is that you want to accomplish something in your life, it requires a certain level of knowledge. And the knowledge that's needed is at a 10, but your level of knowledge in that given area is at a 4. That difference between that 4 and that 10 is your frustration gap. The frustration gap around knowledge. So my question would be to you today is, what is the things that you need to do in the knowledge gap to reduce that? Because the better you can reduce the knowledge gap, the greater you're going to allow yourself to really eliminate that vision gap. Let's jump into the fourth one. The discipline gap. I'm very conscious and very aware of the people that I have around me when it comes to what they're sharing with me. And a lot of times people are sharing one thing, but their lifestyle is telling them another. And I know for so many years, because if I could be real with you, that was me. I remember probably from the age of 13 to 23, 10 years, that all of these gaps I had in my life. And I remember it because I always wanted to do things. I always wanted to be successful. I knew that one day I would be successful, but I had so many of these frustration gaps in my life. And one of them is this one, the discipline gap. The discipline gap is the area where the thing that you want to accomplish requires a certain level of discipline, and your lifestyle and your discipline doesn't allow it. And the reason why it's frustrating is because the vision that you have in your heart and in your mind only gets released when you bring these gaps, when you close these gaps in your life, these frustration gaps. And the discipline gap is you need to have a certain level of discipline to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in your lifetime. And often what happens is people have uphill dreams. So they want to go up. They have all these dreams, but they have downhill habits. And those downhill habits turns into issues. My friend, my question would be to you today is, as a leader, what are the areas that you need to bring discipline into? Is it the area of your eating and health? Is it the area of your leadership? Is the area of finance? Is it the area of, you fill it in, ... But where do you need more discipline in your life so that gap, that frustration gaps gets less and less? You know, I don't want to be here preaching and sharing as if I do this all perfectly, because I don't, but I'm aware that the things that I want to accomplish in my life does require certain levels of discipline. And I taught on the law of sacrifice, which is one of John Maxwell's 21 laws of leadership. And I talk about in the law of sacrifice that most people don't sacrifice. And if they don't sacrifice, then eventually their future is not brighter than their past. I often ask people a question, and I say, well, tell me about your high school days. And they tell me about what they did in high school. And then I ask them, tell me what you're doing now. And they tell me what they're doing now. And then I just want to look at their level of excitement. Don't miss that. I want to look at their level of excitement. And the reason is because their level of excitement around what they're doing today will tell me if their future is brighter than their past. If they're so excited about what they did in high school, and then you ask them what they're doing today, and they're just very like, I'm just doing this and just doing that, I could tell you that they're going to have some frustration gaps in their life. And the reason is that if you're excited for where you're going, then you'll bring discipline to help you get there. You hear me on that one? Most people want something, but they're not willing to sacrifice. You can't say you want to become world class and not sacrifice. You can't say that you want to be the greatest XYZ and not sacrifice. Even parent. If you're going to be a great parent, you're going to have to sacrifice. Sacrifice is part of becoming good at anything. And that requires discipline. So let me give you the first four. The first four frustration gaps is this. It's the vision gap. It's the expectations gap. It's the knowledge gap. And it's the discipline gap. Now let's go to number 5. Number 5 is the giftedness gap. I struggled here for a long time in my career. If I could be real with you, it's really only the last 6 years, 7 years that I really understood the giftedness gap. Because for what happened is for so long, I wanted to be good at many things. And the truth of it is you can be really good at many things, but you may not dominate anything. You don't, when you think of LeBron James, you think of basketball. He dominated basketball. When you think of, Willie Mays, or you think of Babe Ruth, or you think of any of these super talented baseball players, you think of baseball. You think of Celine Dion. You think of an amazing singer. You see, to dominate in any area, you have to be gifted. And most people just want to try to do everything, and they never dominate in the area that they're gifted in because they never put the time in. Giftedness is this. If I could really just unpack this for you. Giftedness is the area that you're passionate about and the area that you're competent about. You see, you're not going to be gifted if you're not passionate about it, because you won't put the effort in. You won't put the time in because you're not passionate about it. And the truth of it is if you're very passionate about something, but you're not good at it, and you don't have the skill set and the talent, you're not going to ever get good. And I often tell people, when you're very passionate about something, but you're not competent at it, keep that as a hobby. Don't turn that into a career. Because hobby, it's okay to have passion, but not competency. But when you're trying to be world class at anything, you need to have competency and passion. You see, so the giftedness gap is this, is that I want to be world class at something, whatever that is for you. I want to be a great leader, but then I'm not using my strengths. And the giftedness gap is when people are operating in their strengths, they're performing here. And when people are operating in their weaknesses, they're performing here. And the truth of it is the world that you and I live in, that world, they pay for giftedness. People don't want to pay for products that are poor, for people that are poor, for food that's disgusting. People want to pay for good and great. And the way you go from good to great is you reduce the giftedness gap. You're able to focus on the areas that you're most gifted in. And then what happens is that gap gets smaller and smaller. Now, let me give you number 6, the good intentions gap. You hear that often. I know I used to be that person. I had good intentions. I'd tell everyone, hey, I'll do that for you. Hey, I'll get this done. Yeah, sure, no problem. And what I realized is that the good intentions gap is the difference between being intentionally good and having good intentions. That gap, as you get better leading yourself, that gap gets smaller and smaller. And I'll share this with you. Think about for a moment where you wanted to accomplish something. You had this dream. It literally created this level of excitement inside of you that I can't wait to do it. I don't know about you, but I know that sometimes when I'm home and I'm preparing for the upcoming week, and I'm just so excited about what's about to happen in our lives, there's a level of expectation, right? You're excited for it. But now watch this. So you have that level of excitement, and then picture for the next 20 years, you just sit on your couch. The excitement's there, but you sit on your couch. The excitement's there, but you sit on your couch. That's what most people do in their life. Maybe it's not as blunt and as straightforward, but most people have these visions and dreams, but they never act on it and they never are intentionally good. And because of that, they got a frustration gap. The frustration gap is I can see myself doing something, but I'm not doing it. I can see myself becoming something, but I'm not becoming it. I can see myself having something, but I don't have it. That happens to so many people because they don't manage that frustration gap known as good intentions gap. They have good intentions, but they don't actually act on it. My friend, in my book, Awaken Your Potential, I write in chapter 10, it's the last chapter of the book, I talk about how we want to fulfill our potential and die empty. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that fulfilling your potential is reducing all these frustration gaps in our lives. We can't have a vision and not start moving on that vision and then expect that we're going to die empty and give everything we had before we're called home. We can't expect to not have to gain knowledge and learn to grow into the man or woman that you were designed to be. You see, all of that requires good intentions. Let me give you number 7. Commitment, the commitment gap. If I could just have a heart-to-heart with you today, if I can just come and just share with you from my heart, the truth is that commitments precede great achievement. You can't have anything in your life without a commitment. I think about men and women that never make a commitment for marriage. Now, for some people, maybe that works for them, but most people don't make a commitment on a marriage out of fear. Fear of what they saw in their life. Fear of that person may walk away from them. But this is what happens when you commit. The second you make a commitment to a friendship, to a relationship, to a marriage, to a business venture, to a vision, what happens is the commitment, when you start making a true commitment, fear, doubt, worry, discouragement, anxiety starts going away. You know why it starts going away? Because your mind gets so focused on the commitment and the vision that you have, that those other things no longer have a hold on you. Well, what I've realized with leaders often is that the leaders that have a real clear vision of what they want in their life, they deal with less problems. Now, it's not that they have less problems, they just deal with less problems because those problems do not become insurmountable to them because that vision and the things that they want to accomplish in their life becomes paramount. I don't know about you, but I can tell you every time that I have to deal with a problem, I always say, Chad, can you make the problem big? Can you make your purpose bigger than that problem right now? And the moment that I find myself where the problems are getting bigger than the purpose, I know that something's wrong. Maybe I can't necessarily articulate it. Maybe I can't put my arms around it, but I know something's wrong. And that's why the commitment gap is so key. Because the commitment gap, once you make that commitment to publicly state what you're going to do in your business, to publicly state what you're going to do in your marriage, to publicly state how you're going to walk as a person of faith, how you're going to walk with the Lord. Once you make a commitment, the frustrations start reducing. Let me give you number 8. Number 8 is the effort gap. Think of that for a moment. We live in a world today that so many people are trying to give as little as possible and get as much as possible. The truth of it is, it's never worked. If you look at societies that have tried to do that, it's never worked. If you look at companies that have tried to do that, they've never worked. They typically go bankrupt because the truth of it is that you can't expect to give as little as possible and get back as much as possible. It's one of the things that I struggle with right now with the younger generation, because I know in the school system and I know in the education system, often they're taught that they should receive something before they become something. Think about that. You should get the salary before you become the leader that deserves the salary. You should get paid before you produce. Yeah, I remember this years ago, and it comes back to the effort gap. I remember many years ago, I heard a coach say to me, he said, producers produce more than they consume, and consumers consume more than they produce. Just think about that for a moment. Someone who produces more than they consume is known as a producer. And people who take more than they produce is known as a consumer. You see, unless you can reduce that effort gap, your frustrations don't go away, because your belief system is, if you have a belief system that I can give as little as possible and I got to expect as much as possible, you're going to find that you're going to be frustrated throughout life. Frustrated upon frustration upon frustration. Success was never created with little effort. Success, anything in life, if you want to be successful in your friendships, you got to put effort. If you want to be successful in your marriage, there's effort. If you want to be successful in your business, there's effort. If you want to be successful in raising your children, right, there's an effort. We got to reduce the effort gap. We got to make sure that we're putting the effort in, because when we're putting the effort in, results follow. Let me give you number 9. The influence gap. I love when John Maxwell says this. He says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, many years ago, I heard that 20 years ago, 18 years ago, whenever it was. Many years ago, couldn't get my arms around it at the point. I don't think I was mature enough to truly understand the depth of that. But human beings, men and women, have a desire. Hear me out. They have a desire to be influential. Now, influence doesn't mean titles. Influence means that we were able to make a difference. And whether that's, we want to be influential with our family, we want to be influential with our kids, we want to be influential with our team, or we want to be globally influential. Human beings by nature want to be influential. And it's not, for some people it's pride and ego, and for others they want to unleash and unlock potential in others. But my friend, the influence gap is this, is where you want to be in influencing people in a good, positive way, and where you are. And the difference from where you are to where you want to be is vision, expectations, knowledge, discipline, giftedness, good intentions, commitment, effort. All these frustration gaps help make you more influential. The clearer you are on your vision, the more influence you'll have. The clearer you can manage expectations, the more influence you have. The more knowledge you have and you apply it, the more influence you'll have. The greater discipline you bring to your life, the more influence you'll have. The more you use your giftedness, more influence. The better you are with being intentionally good, more influence. Commitment. You put the effort in, you'll have more influence with people, because you'll speak with a moral authority. You can't say, I'm successful, and then work an hour a week. Success requires effort and commitment. I want to give you the last 2. I'm going to spend probably another 5 or 10 minutes on the last 2. And that is the leadership gap. So one of the frustration gaps that happen in people's lives is the leadership gap. See, we can have a vision of where we want to go. We can have a vision of what we want to accomplish. And sometimes that vision feels so real. I don't know about you, but I know when I was 23 years old, I had a vision and it felt so real, but it wasn't. Don't miss what I'm about to say. It was not real. It was a picture that could become real, but that vision was not real. And I don't want to encourage you from having vision. I want to encourage you to reduce the frustration gaps in your life that will make the vision that you see become the vision that is reality. That makes sense? You see, most people, they have a vision. They could see something in their head and then they're excited about it because they believe that that's it. But the reality of it is the vision requires all of those other previous frustration gaps that I just mentioned to you. And the better we lead ourselves, the more reality that vision becomes. I remember years ago, I heard a very successful real estate developer, and he said this. He was a billionaire real estate developer, and he said him and his wife at the time were walking in New York City, and they saw a homeless person. And they said to them, do you know the difference between them and us? And the wife said, no. They said, they are $1 billion wealthier than we are. This person was $1 billion in debt. But you know what happened? The difference is the person that was homeless didn't have all of these attributes that we're talking about. They didn't have the discipline. Maybe they didn't have the giftedness. Maybe they didn't put effort in. Maybe they were struggling through some other, addictions, which is the discipline gap. You see, if we lead ourselves well, that gap gets smaller. The frustration gap gets smaller the better we lead ourselves. You just close your eyes for a moment. If you're driving, keep your eyes open, but outside of driving, close your eyes where you are right now as you're listening to this podcast. Just think about this for a moment. Think about the people that you see in your life right now that are doing things that you wish you were doing. They're doing things at such a high level. And I bet you with a high level of certainty, you're going to find that they led themselves well. You see, we talk about the 4 phases of leadership: self-leadership, one-on-one leadership, team leadership, and organizational leadership. Those are the 4 phases. When we lead ourselves well, that frustration gap, it gets less and less and less and less. When we don't lead ourselves well, that frustration gap gets bigger and bigger. And then I want to give you the last one. This is number 11, the potential gap. The potential gap is this. By now, you know that I'm a person of faith, and I'm going to share it through this lens. The potential gap is this: who God designed you to be compared to who you actually are becoming. Think about that for a moment. Okay? The potential gap, if your potential is here, that's who God designed you to be, but you're performing here in your life, that's the potential gap from where God designed you to be to where you are. Now, we all struggle through that. I'm not perfect. I'm not going through that. I'm not saying that I've perfected the system. What I am saying is this, is that the better we can recognize the potential that God put in you, the greater you can fulfill the potential that is inside of you. I'll give you a short little story and we'll wrap up. I remember I was reading a book and they were talking about, it was a book by Miles Monroe, and he was talking about this golden Buddha. And he was talking about, I don't remember what country it's in, but it's in one of the Middle Eastern countries. And he was talking about how for years they were trying to figure out how were they going to move this Buddha, how they were going to move it. And they were concerned that it was going to crack. And if it cracked, it would lose all of its value. And they were trying to figure it out. in how to move it. And eventually, in the process of trying to move it, they recognized that it was a little piece of it was cracked. But don't miss what I'm about to share with you. In the process of the breaking and the cracking, they recognized that there was this multi-billion-dollar gold underneath that facade. That's us as humans. God has given you and I tremendous potential. He's given us tremendous potential. The greatest gift that we could ever give back to God is reaching that potential. The greatest gift. Now, you don't have to be a person of faith, but just hear my heart out. You have potential. You have tremendous potential. God says that we are built in His image and likeness. And the potential gap is believing the lies that have been whispered in your ear. You're not good enough. You'll never accomplish that. You think you can do that? Who makes you think you're that good? Those are lies. And the potential gap is this. I know God called me to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am going to show up and I'm going to make sure that I'm clear on the vision. That vision gap gets smaller. I'm going to make sure that I manage expectations. That expectation gap gets smaller. I'm going to make sure that I learn the knowledge to be world class. The knowledge gap gets smaller. I'm going to build discipline into my life so that discipline gap gets smaller. I'm going to operate out of giftedness so my giftedness brings me and opens up doors to get me in front of influential people. Now the gap gets smaller. I'm going to be intentionally good. Gap gets smaller. I'm going to make commitments that matter. Gap gets smaller. I'm going to put the effort in. I'm not going to just think that I'm going to float through life. I'm going to put the actual effort in. The gap gets smaller. I'm going to become a person of influence. The gap gets smaller. I'm going to lead myself well. The gap is smaller. I'm going to fulfill the potential that God put in my life, and I'm going to die empty. There's no more gap. That's called fulfillment. My friend, you were designed to be fulfilled. You were designed to fulfill the vision and the calling that's in your life. Do not stop. Continue pressing forward. Our team and myself and my wife, we're rooting for you because I know that God doesn't build anything that is junk. He put perfect gold inside of you. Your job is to get rid of all the frustration gaps and become the man and woman that God has designed you to be. I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you. I am believing that you will become the leader you were designed to be. I want to thank you for joining us on the leadership table as I just unpacked the 11 frustration gaps that all of us go through. Hey, until next week's, God bless you. Thank you for allowing me in your life.